President Joe Biden, along with pro-abortion Democrats on Capitol Hill, continue their pro-abortion push as the U.S. Supreme Court considers the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case. The White House administration is exploring strategies to expand and protect access to abortion. One of those options, placing abortion businesses on federal land in states where there are limits on the procedure. The idea here is that pro-abortion businesses would then fall under federal law and not be subject to state-level restrictions on abortion.
This is an issue about how women are able to make decisions. This is an issue that is so fundamental. And what we can see from some of my colleagues who will use that very argument is let's look at how we treat children. Let's look who's fighting for children. That is the Democrats in Congress.
Republican lawmakers have made it clear that there will be pushback if President Biden decides to use executive power to work around state pro-life laws that have been advanced by duly elected legislators. And joining us now in studio is Rebecca Downs, web editor for Townhall Media. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
So much for having me.
I want to start by just getting your thoughts on the fact that Democrats often claim they are the ones advocating and fighting for children and families, but they often neglect the unborn. What do you have to say about that?
It's a typical talking point for these pro-abortion Democrats, unfortunately. It's what we can come to expect, that the disclaimer is that as long as the children are born, but they don't really care for the unborn children or their mothers. We, see things about keeping children masked and not respecting parents' rights for that. So it's almost a laughable non-response. A lot of pandering to their base.
Very interesting. And let's talk about the potential of placing abortion businesses on federal property throughout the United States. Now, I believe the idea here is that these abortion businesses would lease the federal land from the government. What would this mean, particularly in states that are pro-life?
So this is something that the Biden administration is really, it's fulfilling campaign promises, it's fulfilling keeping to the real hardline pro-abortion base in the party platform. They are trying to look for workarounds in pro-life states. Sadly, this is not surprising. This is what we can expect from the Biden-Harris administration, especially with remarks that Kamala Harris made during the campaign, that they're really going to try to strong-arm pro-life states to make it so it's much more difficult for them to work with their duly passed pro-life laws.
And let's talk about President Biden's new commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, Robert Califf. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia actually opposed his nomination. Why is that?
So Robert Califf, there have been concerns both with opioids, but also specifically from a pro-life perspective. So he had this role before in 2016, and under his tenure, chemical abortions, as we now call them, they kind of moved up how long you could use that method for. So it goes up to 10 weeks when it had been 7 weeks. 10 weeks, the procedure is much more dangerous. This is a do-it-yourself procedure that women go through alone at home. They're kind of lied to by the abortion industry that it's a heavy period. When there are much more complications in this method, and it goes to the reason that the longer you expand the procedure, the more complications there are.
My goodness. And Rebecca, before we let you go, could you just let us know what else you're tracking in Congress, especially when it comes to pro-life legislation?
Sure. So fortunately, even though Robert Califf was confirmed, there is pushback from pro-life senators to ask him about how in December the Biden administration, the FDA, rolled back regulations. So they are going to do something about that. And some more hopeful news is that it looks like Hyde is here to stay. Even though Democrats in the House were really trying to get rid of it, it's got to be included in order for there to be a government spending bill to pass.
Very encouraging. Rebecca Downs of Townhall, thank you so much for joining us. This week, on Tuesday, the Senate confirmed Robert Califf as Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. During his tenure at HHS under President Obama, Califf removed federal safeguards on chemical abortions, setting the stage for the abortion industry to begin to turn every post office and pharmacy into an abortion center. And joining us now to discuss Califf's record is Tessa Longbons, Senior Research Associate at the Charlotte Lozier Institute. It's great to have you in the studio today, Tessa.
Thanks, Prudence. It's great to be here.
Now, it's been made clear that pro-life groups, including the Susan B. Anthony list, strongly oppose Califf's nomination and confirmation to this role. Can you explain why?
Yes, well, Dr. Califf has a track record on chemical abortion, and his record isn't good. In 2016, the last time that Dr. Califf led the FDA, they actually rolled back regulations on chemical abortion, including a requirement that all serious complications be reported by abortion providers. Now only deaths are required to be reported. And we're in tumultuous times with chemical abortion. The FDA recently caved to abortion industry demands to allow it through the mail as a result of the pandemic. And so pro-lifers want someone leading the FDA who will keep Americans safe from dangerous drugs and ensure that the profit-driven abortion industry is following the rules. And Dr. Califf has shown he's not willing to do that.
Interesting. And in a piece supporting Califf's nomination, the Wall Street Journal's editorial board recently claimed that pro-life concerns with Califf have, quote, little merit. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think it misses the real-life impact on unborn babies and their mothers. We've seen that chemical abortion complications have been increasing. In fact, the Charlotte Lozier Institute recently published a paper showing that the rate of emergency room visits after chemical abortions increased by over 500% between 2002 and 2015. So these are dangerous drugs, and the data that the FDA used to make its decision is flawed and incomplete. But even with that data, we know that there have been thousands of severe complications that women have suffered.
And from a medical perspective, are women in more danger if they receive the pills via the mail rather than receiving them in person with a doctor?
Well, chemical abortion can be dangerous in all circumstances. It's 4 times more dangerous than surgical abortion, but there are some safeguards that receiving the drugs in person can offer. A physical exam can rule out a dangerous condition like an ectopic pregnancy, ensure that the pregnancy isn't too far along so that the drugs won't be effective, and can make sure that the woman isn't being coerced or forced into the abortion. And these are things that we lose when these drugs are being sent through the mail.
Very important. And I was glad to see that your colleague Chuck Donovan's letter to the editor was placed in the Wall Street Journal, raising awareness about Califf's record. Can you speak to the role of people like yourself and Chuck at the Charlotte Lozier Institute providing science and statistics that support life, especially in today's culture? How important is this?
Well, I'm glad that you got to read Chuck's letter to the editor. And I think now more than ever, we've seen so much flawed data and misinformation about the safety of chemical abortion, and really just a lot going on with abortion in general. We have a Supreme Court case that could start to dismantle Roe v. Wade, a lot happening in the states. And so I think people need accurate data, accurate research on abortion, and that's what we try to do at the Charlotte Lozier Institute. We're pro-life because of science, and so we want to produce good science that can inform policymakers and pro-lifers.
We're so thankful for the work that you do. Tessa Longbons of the Charlotte Lozier Institute.
Thanks for having me.